Oh, my dad was like, hey, you can use that on the podcast tonight? He's like, yeah, since we've been home, your mom joined a new group. And I was like, what is this? Yeah, it's called DAM, Mothers Against Dyslexia. I was like, Dad, you're stupid.
Oh, I feel like I've heard that one before.
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's because we're talking about Deja Vu today.
Oh, damn. Did we just start?
Damned if we do, damned if we don't.
All right.
Welcome to Modern Day Apocrypha, everybody. I'm Nick.
And I'm Tony.
And we already told you what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about Deja Vu. And that's hilarious because I was just talking to my dad right before we started this. And he's like, are you going to use that on the show tonight? I was like, no, but I'll definitely tell Nick. And here I am telling Nick, and I don't even realize we're starting the show. So you're welcome, everyone, for a little bit of my dad's humor.
Everybody needs some dad jokes. In fact, I've actually got a book of dad jokes somewhere that I have collected throughout the years. This isn't something that somebody published. No, it's the work and blood, sweat, and tears that I've put in over the years hearing the corniest of the corny.
So you should publish that. Dad Jokes, a collection by Nick Johnson.
Ooh.
And I'll do an audiobook for it.
Oh my goodness, Tony, with your voice.
That says a lot though, because I hate dad jokes. I really hate dad jokes, but I think I'd love to do an audiobook, so I'd suck it up.
All right.
And it'd be for you.
Oh man, dude, you're going to make me blush right here on camera. Oh, thank goodness it's a podcast. But hey, if you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, we do record videos of this, and you can see my rosy red cheeks. You can see Tony's beautiful aura.
Hey.
And we'd love to have you over on the YouTube channel. We also post all sorts of clips and stuff. Been a little bit behind. I've had some adulting going on. So anyway, that's something we'll be caught up on in the next week or so. But we'll have clips on our Instagram pages and social media. You can find us pretty much anywhere, Tony, right?
Yep. As long as you're looking.
What are we called?
We are called Modern Day Apocrypha. I mean, you should know that. We've been doing this for like 30 some odd episodes. But happy to help you out.
I was specifically going for @MD Apocrypha on a lot of our channels. But I put you on the spot, though.
It's okay.
That's all right.
Side note, you've been doing the paper thing here instead of like notes on the... I love the new like notebook because you feel so goddamn official. Like, here we are. I'm going to educate you with my notes.
Just wait till I pan up and you realize that it's got little tennis rackets on it. Oh, yeah. This is nothing but the finest elementary school has to offer.
That's ping pong.
But you know what? It actually kind of works out because like this... So for anybody that's not watching, you should go watch, first of all. But secondly, I've got ping pong paddles on each side of my notebook, and it's got like the actual rubber grip to it.
It's amazing.
Feel that. Give it a little stroke.
It's like a brand new ping pong paddle.
Yeah, actually, I've got a ping pong table downstairs. Maybe we should try it out.
Weird question. Can I smell it?
That is a weird question, but yes, smell away.
Doesn't smell like ping pong paddle though.
No.
Feels like it, doesn't smell like it.
Interesting.
It's definitely fake.
That's, oh man.
I don't know. I'm making shit up at this point.
I'm not really happy to be dissed like that on our podcast here in front of everybody. Hey, for real though, if you're new to the channel, we normally don't have this long of an intro, first of all. And secondly, this podcast is about exploration first, right, Tony?
Yeah. Typically about shit that people don't like to or are afraid to, or it's not culturally acceptable to explore. Mm-hmm. So we talk about a lot of weird shit, a lot of hard shit.
Yeah, a lot of it's about like just kind of picking different topics that we're interested in, not coming from an area of expertise by any means, but we like to spend some time looking into these topics and come with at least some type of position, I guess you might say, and not like debate them at all, but just have like open dialogue and explore where the conversation leads. And more often than not, it leads to some really interesting perspectives. So we're excited to have you here to join along, and let's get into it. We're talking about Deja Vu.
Definitely. One thing that I thought was super interesting in my little bit of research I did for this was Deja Vu is French for already seen. And I was like, that's really cool, but also takes all of the magic out of it for me.
Why is that?
Oh, yeah. I saw that already.
Yeah.
It's not like...
It makes it so mundane.
Yeah, it's not this mystical, it's deja vu. what's happening?
No, it's just shit you've already seen before.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, that's cool, but not as cool.
So I assume this is a phenomena that everybody experiences. I actually didn't see if I've got some thoughts around that I wrote down, but I assume that you've seen it, right? Or experienced it rather.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, but I've definitely experienced it before. And as the research I was doing today says it typically happens with younger people. And I can go into like a little bit later, like a mystical explanation as to why, because that's my angle and what I'm always going to come with. But as people get older, it's not as common. It still happens, but it's much more common for people under the age of, I think, 25 from what I was seeing.
Yeah, that's spot on with what I researched as well. And I'd love to get into your mystical stuff, even if it's early on. But just like you were getting into, one of the notes that I wrote down was it doesn't occur until you're 8 or 9 years old, first of all.
Really? I didn't see that part.
Which is interesting.
But it makes sense because at that point you need to have built up enough experiences to compare to feel like you've been there before.
Sure, it makes sense. And I've got another interesting thing on that in just a second. That's a little bit of a tangent. But the other thing that I wrote down was that it occurs most frequently in your teens and early 20s. So just like you said, it kind of caps off at 25-ish. And when I started thinking about that, I'm 28. And I was like, yeah, it's been quite some time. Like, it hits me every now and then, but it's interesting.
Right.
The little tangent that I thought of was a concept that I've experienced, and it seems like it's pretty prevalent because there was a whole YouTube video on it. But when you were a kid, did you feel like time took so long, like it passed so slowly? Like a year was an incredible amount of time.
It's hard to say because as I've been learning with all the like mystical, spiritual stuff I've been doing, I've been so focused on trying to be present that as I've gotten better at that, I've gotten so much more disconnected from the past and future. So most of especially the far-reaching past stuff, there's certain moments that I'll remember or certain, you might call them formative experiences or whatever. But to think back to like my childhood as a whole, I've been putting so much energy on this moment that I'm in, that's harder to access for me.
So you're saying that you have a difficult time like going back and recalling what it was like being a kid?
Yep.
Okay, interesting. So I wonder if this is something that would be more common in Western culture for the way that I framed this up to be something that people experience. Because I know that when I was a kid, it seemed like Christmas would be so far away, and now it's like, goodness gracious, we're all already in April. Like,
yeah.
My taxes are supposed to be due today. I haven't done them, but we got an extra month.
Hey.
Normally I'm way ahead of that, but just had a lot going on.
I was like, bro, we could have rescheduled. Shit.
No. They extended it.
A couple of weeks, we're going to have the IRS knocking on the doors. We're trying to...
Kicking it down. Dude, I know people that haven't filed their taxes for like 8 years.
I know. I'm just giving you shit.
Which I think is funny. But yeah, so that's a phenomena that I've experienced. And I heard a theory on why that might be, why you experience time so much slower as a kid than you do as an adult. And one of the theories is that a year for a 4-year-old is substantially more of a percentage of their lifetime. That's 25% of their life.
Right.
And all of their experiences, as compared to a 70-year-old where that's 1/70th of their life.
Which time they say that time is speeding up, but aside from that, what you're saying is time staying the same, but our perception of it changes because we have more of it to compare.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? And like it becomes smaller and smaller increments of your overall human experience throughout your life. I just thought that was kind of interesting. So I thought of that when you were talking about like you don't have any experiences to reference to have deja vu occur until you're 8 or 9 years old or whatever that threshold is.
Yeah. To explain that mystical angle, a lot of people, so if you go again, and there's a lot of this that I kind of wrote down to talk about tonight, but if you subscribe to the theory of reincarnation, right, there's a couple of different versions of that. One of those is that there's this in-between space, in between your lives, where you kind of integrate your life lessons and plan out your next life and your accomplishments. Pick people you're going to go hang with and try to meet up with at some point in your life and accomplish XYZ for both of your growth and development. And so one angle could be that when you experience a moment of deja vu, it's a pre-programmed memory. Oh, I'm on track and on my path of where I was supposed to be. This makes sense.
Hold on, can we pause for a second?
Sure.
So you're saying that like if you buy into the reincarnation theory, then it's not so much that you've experienced in your past life, but it's like you've
planned out or at least set objectives for this life and set out a desired path for yourself.
Gotcha.
Now, some people will take that to the extreme and say you fully experience your life and then you jump into it and you don't realize how real it's going to be. And so there's a disconnect in remembering, and that's a whole nother topic. And then there's nope, you remember pieces or you plan out checkpoints that you're going to hit, and how you get to those checkpoints is up to you. Blah, blah, blah.
What about the thought of those are previous experiences that you've had?
That's another angle, right? So it's either previous experiences that you've had. So if you do the reincarnation thing, we think small because we can only remember this life. But if you've had hundreds of thousands of lives, well, it makes sense that you walking into a place, whether it be the place, you've experienced the place before, or the type of scenario that you're in, you've experienced that before. Sometimes when you recognize people that you know you've never met in this life, but you're like, I know you. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's that same deja vu recognizing an experience or person or place from a past life. So I think there's different versions of deja vu and different angles you can take on it depending on your perspective.
Yeah, and so it could be like if you're having a conversation with somebody, it's like, dude, I swear we've talked about this before. Maybe it's not that exact same conversation that you had, but it was the same takeaway.
Sure.
From that conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I could get on board with that. I think I buy into that more than the first theory, because like for me, deja vu is something that seems to, well, first of all, it's like super random, and it doesn't seem to be about momentous events. Like it's just like small, weird, abstract things. Like I remember seeing that flower like right outside of that Walgreens. Like it's just so just random.
So there's the other aspect too that I hadn't thought about till just now. It's people talk about different psychic abilities, or you might think about it more scientifically, being able to access that collective consciousness, the quantum realm, whatever. Maybe you foresaw a moment, whether that be in a dream, subconsciously, and then you're there and you go, oh yeah, I saw this already. Mm-hmm. I knew this was coming. I'm here. Whether it's important or not important, it's the little details that your mind connects in that moment and goes, oh yeah, that flower outside of Walgreens.
So that's like getting into precognition. Mm-hmm. And that you mentioned dreams, which is what triggered that word for me. And in dreams, people often discuss like or they try to interpret it first of all, and like, is there meaning to it? And then secondly, people often think that it might be like a sign of what's to come down the road. And then so deja vu might be something that you've pulled from a recent dream or just a previous dream in general. And I've thought that before, like
right.
before I ever actually like researched what deja vu was, sometimes I was like, I feel like I might have dreamed that or something.
Yeah. And then again, depending on what your perspective is, you could have just dreamed it. And then here's the other thought of, we've had so many experiences already in our life. And, we've talked about in previous episodes about false memories. And if we've filtered out some information and there's enough similar pieces that our brain just fills in the blanks with what's there, and we go, oh, I've done this before, when you really haven't, but you're triggered with a present false memory.
Right.
Does that make sense? Did
Yeah.
I say that right?
So is that your personal thoughts?
Dude, I don't fucking know. As I sat down, I'm like,
well, hold on. I'm asking, like, was that something that you had researched, or is that something that like you formulated in your head?
That was kind of something I formulated right now.
Which is fucking beautiful. And I'll tell you why. Because I wrote down the 3 top theories about like how deja vu happens.
Hit me with the top 3.
You pretty much landed on one of them, so I'll talk about that here in just a second. But I don't know how anybody ranked the top 3, because as I just kept researching, like going to different sources, almost every single source had a different theory.
You know that's clickbait, right?
What is?
We're conditioned when there's a list that's put in a certain form of information.
That wasn't the title or like anything like that. It was just this. I think they wanted structure to their.
But that's what I'm saying is if it says the top 3, then in our mind, we're more likely to think about it or to pay attention to it because I want to be efficient. And when I look at the information, subconsciously we think someone's already done all the research. Let me look at the top 3 and then I can make my own or a top 10. That's why you see all these top 10, top whatever lists. Right. It's because psychologically it triggers us to think that that information is more important than someone just blandly talking about a topic.
Which I think is awesome, like psychological marketing.
It is.
And you'll see that like especially at the bottom of articles where they've got like the advertised articles. It seems like it's even more prevalent there or in like Instagram ads and things like that.
YouTube posts too. YouTube videos will be like, hey, top 10 reasons you should XYZ.
So top theories, I'll just name them real quick. Dual processing, hologram theory, and divided attention. And that means absolutely nothing to you. So I'm glad that we just spent some time just reading through those. I'll talk about them a little bit.
Come back next week for Deja Vu.
Yeah, we'll have the article now. I can see the title. It'll be top 3 theories of Deja Vu. But I'll start with number 2, which was the hologram theory, because that's pretty much what I think you were pulling from. And the theory there is that memories are stored as fragments, not as like whole memories. And so that's where you can get false memories from. I think this was in the Mandela Effect episode that we covered, episode 32, I believe. And we had brought up the conversation about that girl who was entirely convinced that she saw the 9/11 event
from firsthand from where she was at.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it turns out that actually she was like in another state and had no view of this. I mean, she was in Connecticut, so it was like close, but it was still like impossible for her to have seen it. And she was like, what? I could have sworn that I saw it. But the thought behind why she's so adamant that she did is that she pieced together the different fragments of memory, like seeing the towers burning on the television. And her school did have a window, which was part of her memory, but that window didn't overlook the harbor, New York Harbor, or is that the Hudson Bay? Fuck, I don't know. I don't think it is. I think the Hudson Bay is in...
I was only in New York once.
Goodness gracious.
And I really only remember the rats.
The Hudson Bay. This is going to drive me nuts. But I think the Hudson Bay is in Canada. Damn it, man. I used to be good at geography.
I was like, you're don't look at me. I use my GPS very well because it tells me where to go.
Touche. I gotta pull this up, y'all. But anyway, while that's pulling up, so basically this theory, the hologram theory, is that you're recalling memory fragments, and the brain recalls that specific fragment without any of the context that it's needed.
Sure.
So it's like you've seen a checkered pattern before, and then you're having a picnic years later or whatever the time frame is, and it's like, I could have sworn we had this picnic already. And it's because you're seeing that same checkered pattern. Maybe it was a tablecloth, but now that same pattern's on your picnic blanket.
I think I've got a really good analogy for this. Do you remember a few years back before they got really good with like facial recognition technology?
Yes.
And you put some photos on Facebook and it might auto tag the wrong person?
Oh, I didn't know about that, but that's awesome.
Or it would suggest when you'd go in to tag it, it would suggest people on your friends list. And sometimes it would be like the way wrong person. Most of the time it was right, but sometimes it tagged the wrong person based on certain things that go, oh, this looks like it's this person. Same thing.
Exactly. Yes. That's a perfect analogy. So I think that's kind of what the thought process is there. And so it's like, okay, so the system's not perfect, you know? By the way, the Hudson Bay is in Canada.
And he just looks around at the cameras like, I'm so validated. Guys, I was right.
So I thought that I had always heard like The Hudson Bay pilot. Somehow I associated that with New York. I don't know. I just had no idea.
Well, New York is next to Canada.
Up there.
I've never seen you more proud of like, hey guys, I did it.
Courtesy of Google.
Oh, so good.
Larry Page and the other guy get the credit.
What were the other two?
Dual processing. So basically the thought there is that whenever you're taking in an experience, your brain is taking in multiple different channels of information. So that's like, I don't know exactly how they intended it, but the way that I interpret it is like, you've got your auditory channels, you've got your sense of smell, like all your different senses coming in, and those are different channels. And then also your visual might be like ranking things like this is important, this is not important, this is a threat, this is safe, this is something that I love, this is my hamster. And you're taking all of this in, and it's all these different little channels processing, and they kind of flow seamlessly. But when one might be processed or delayed or something like that, then it comes in after all the other information has already been processed with the context of that hamster being in the memory, and that triggers deja vu. So that's another theory. And so that might be like, you know, if you've ever been transferring files, you can transfer like a bunch all at once, and it doesn't necessarily do it sequentially. It's not like we do file number 1 and then we do file number 2 and file number 3. No, it does it all at once. But then sometimes like you'll kind of get this little queue of other files that were like, oh yeah, now we're going. And so it could be something like that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I have no way to articulate what you just said because I was visualizing it and it just made sense. It's like, yeah, okay, I can see that. And then, okay.
So I hope everybody else visualized it. And then the third theory is divided attention. I'm just going to read my notes because I don't remember exactly what this one was about. So here we go.
Because your attention was divided. That's fucking funny.
It was. So your brain subconsciously observes the environment while your attention is elsewhere. So like, I think the analogy that was given here was like, let's say you're at a restaurant and a waiter drops his plate and you've been sitting at that, or maybe you just sat down at that table when all that happened, and your attention gravitates towards that waiter dropping his plate. So that's where all of your conscious focus thoughts are. But your brain is subconsciously saying, okay, like this is my environment, scanning it all, taking it all in. And then when you come back to the more present moment, your attention shifts away from that waiter dropping his plate. Then it's like, dude, I could have sworn we've like sat right here in the same spot before.
Yeah, because it was okay. Again, visualize it. I don't know how to talk about it. I see it. Okay.
And so like that makes a lot of sense to me because like you definitely have subconscious thoughts. I don't even know if you call them thoughts, but subconscious things happening and conscious things happening. And when they just, it's not even that they get out of sync, but it's like all of your attention is focused on one thing, but you've still observed what's going on.
Definitely.
And that makes sense.
And then when you get into, people might call it intuition, your sixth sense, your all of that other stuff that until you're trained to pay attention to, you don't know that you're picking up as well. I'm focused on it's capturing the information. It might not just be putting it up to the cognitive part where you're paying attention to it. And then for whatever reason, it snaps up. I've been here before. No, you just didn't cognitively recognize it the moment it was inputted. And then it inputted at a jump. You're like, oh shit, this has happened before. Well, yeah, just 10 seconds ago when you got the information. That makes sense. I think that's an easy way to explain it away, but I don't think that's what's going on.
Yeah. So it's just like super fascinating to me. And you started talking about reincarnation, and I like the idea of reincarnation. Like I know that's not, well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for somebody else, but I don't think of reincarnation as like a religion per se. I think it's like a component of some religions.
Sure. Yep.
But I like that idea, and I would like to subscribe to that more than most of the different religions.
Who doesn't like the idea of unlimited respawns?
Yeah. I mean, Halo figured it out.
Exactly. Or they were trying to tell us a secret.
Ooh, uh-oh.
Hey, it's okay if you die. You'll come back. I mean, don't try to die.
As long as nobody else got that goddamn sword.
Yeah, and then it was glitched. Anyways, we're going to talk about Halo. Let's come back to Deja Vu.
But there are just so many other theories, and I'm sure we'll get into some of these, but you had kind of talked about reincarnation, and I think that's a completely plausible theory. You and I have talked about collective consciousness before, and I don't see any reason to think that that's not on the table, that if there is a collective consciousness, then somebody else might have had that same experience, and it's like a shared memory that's been uploaded to the cloud, and then you've downloaded, or maybe you're trying to upload that same information. It's like duplicate file.
Sure.
That's
a good way
just
to
like
put
a
it.
computer. And it's like, do you want to replace this copy? And it's like, no, that person already beat me to it.
Well, if there's infinite number of lives and people and perspectives, and if it all goes up to the same cloud service, being the collective consciousness, it would make sense that now there's infinite nuances of perspective and different things, so that having the exact same circumstance is probably going to be rare is not the right word. Uncommon might be a better word, because we're not getting hit with deja vu all the fucking time. But sometimes it does happen. Oh, someone has been here in this exact type of whatever. We're hitting that duplicate file.
So how do you think, taking all of these theories into our thoughts, how do you think the concept or the dynamic that age plays in this factors in? Wow, that was just a lot of words that I used.
I totally followed though. How do I think the
How does
dynamic
age
of
factor
age?
into this?
I think it probably has something to do with a lot of people get cemented into their reality or their life path or however they're going to be around that age. You're pretty much, and of course there's exceptions to this, but for the most part, people kind of solidify their perception of the world around that age, 25 or so. And then they are pretty consistent. And so the openness in any way, shape, or form of any of these potentials is closed off, because now I'm focusing pretty consistent on how I see the world and how I'm going to live in it for this lifetime.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think like brain development factors into that, because I've heard various different ages get thrown out, and let's be honest, like there's probably not a specific age. Just like you're not an adult at 18. Half of us, including me, are just freaking toddlers running around with alcohol.
Hey.
But like to me, it makes me think that deja vu is like a little glitch in your brain, and it's part of your brain development process. And once that's pretty well developed, then like it's no longer creating issues.
I'm glad you said glitch in brain development. You've probably not seen The Matrix, right?
I have, yeah.
You happen to see The Matrix. You have seen this reference I'm about to go for. Hooray.
Oh, boy.
I'm so excited. So, you know, Neo in The Matrix, when he sees the cat go twice, deja vu. He's new to being outside of the Matrix, and all his buddies are like, what the fuck did you just say? Yeah, I just saw a cat walk by twice. Then they're like, fuck. That means there's a glitch in the Matrix. Something changed. Something shifted, and we caught it. So, if at that younger age or that younger perspective, we're still aware, going back to the potential of reincarnation, that there's a different life and we get our memories wiped to come have this experience, there's still an openness to that awareness. And that's why we'll catch some of these deja vu moments and see the glitch of people talk about life being a simulation or the Matrix, whatever. Become 25, your brain's fully developed, you're closed, you're settled into your Matrix, into your simulation, and then you don't see that shit as much.
Oh, shit, dude. Like the walls have closed in, like there's not really getting out of it now.
And you can, right? I think.
With mushrooms,
meditation, whatever types of things you can do. But unless you intentionally go seek that out, there's no more of these accidental happenings that just happen to you. that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does. I think it makes sense. Like, there's just, man, like, where do you put your finger on this?
I don't know. I think it's just a lot of the shit we explore. And early on, when I started being a thought explorer of, trying to understand or grasp some of these like heavy existential mysteries of life questions, I got really frustrated and depressed early on because I couldn't answer some of them. And I have come to realize that sometimes it's not about finding the answer, it's about the pursuit of the answer. And so I think it's about asking these questions and exploring these possibilities to the depth that there is. In this single lifetime, are we going to be able to study the fuck out of deja vu in all these different ways to know definitively what it is? Probably not. Does that mean we shouldn't try? Absolutely not. Because we're going to learn and gain different perspectives and possibilities along the way. And I think that applies to fucking everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there are so many different components that get explored along the way. Like when we're talking about deja vu, another theory that I read was that it's like a momentary epileptic fit, if you will, like where all of your synapses fire all at once. And that seems to be supported by people who have temporal lobe injuries, which are the parts of your brain that take in and process memory. And that kind of makes sense because like if you've let me back up. So if you've had a temporal lobe injury, then you're more prone to seizures, and you're also more prone to experiencing deja vu. And so those things seem to be somehow interlinked. Granted, correlation is not causality, but seems to be the case on a growing number of studies.
What would make sense to me if the whole brain solidifying into your experience of the matrix or the simulation is true, that if something gets fucked in your processor, that you can't process the simulation quite right, it's gonna glitch more often than a normal person.
Right.
That's logical to me.
And so like if you have like an overload, you're not going to process it, and then like there's a delay and then it comes in, and all of this seems to kind of be, all of these different theories are similar to each other.
It's almost like a different perspective of the same thing.
Yes. And I think like the neuroscience just has to be explored more.
Right.
Another, maybe this wasn't so much a theory of deja vu, but it kind of touched on it, was how we process vision, like how vision is actually taken into the brain and everything. And I learned something that I thought was super interesting, and that is that people who have had an injury that damaged their visual cortex, which is in the back of your brain, that's where your eyes send the visual information to be processed, can still so they'll be like legally blind, but if you put a picture of somebody who's happy or somebody who's scared, they'll feel that emotion too.
Sense it.
And what the fuck?
Yep.
And same thing with they've been able to navigate obstacle courses. Like if you put a bunch of hazards on the ground that like they're going to trip over, they can just keep their eyes open. They can't see anything, but they have this like intuition, it seems to us, I need to walk around this. Well, they dove in, did obviously some studies there, because who wouldn't be fascinated by that and want to figure it out? And it turns out that visual stimuli is sent to other parts of the brain before it hits the visual cortex. And one of those is like the amygdala, for example. And so there might be an evolutionary reason there, because the amygdala processes fear. I think it also creates adrenaline. I could be wrong on that.
That would make sense from an efficiency standpoint, from a survival standpoint. Hey, let's put a threat filter on this.
Right.
It's almost like a virus scanner before you download your file and have true access to it.
Yes. And so your brain is going to process that information first and put you in that fight or flight mentality. And then your brain's like, okay, this is what we saw. But by the time you get to that stage, your heart rate might already be increased or increasing, and you're just, a quarter of a second more likely to stay alive, or whatever that is.
That explains why when you like watch a scary movie or something unexpectedly happens, you jump before you can even see what's happening.
Sure. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah.
So that could be something else that plays into deja vu. Like perhaps there's like a delay there. And we've talked about like that processing backup, or it seems to be something related to that, I guess.
It's interesting. You talked about the blind being able to see. A friend had told me something that really pissed me off when he told me it, because I didn't like it, because I'm a very visual person and I love seeing all the beautiful things. He's like, we don't actually see anything ever. We get visual input, it's processed, and then projected on our imaginary screen inside your head. So all of our dreams, how are our dreams any different than what we're seeing? It's all just played on the imaginary screen inside our head. And I'm like, that's really logical, and I don't like that, because that freaks me out.
Yeah. And so like in your dreams, you still got that canvas, that screen, but you're not using your eyeballs to pull in information. Your brain's just like, okay, what can we pull from?
Yep.
Let's just throw some shit on the screen.
And so
it's like an artist doing abstract work as opposed to painting something that's in front of them.
that's one way to put it. Or when these people who are so used to think 4K video, all the details and whatever, and then now you go blind, your information that comes through, you don't get the 4K video, but you might still be getting on a way that we don't recognize, because the 4K video is so detailed and distracts us. Maybe you don't recognize the depth of information that's behind it that you're also recognizing and processing. And so even though you're not visually seeing things like we're conditioned or we have the perspective of seeing all the time, the shit that's beneath it, whether you call that energy, other layers of information, still gives depth and measure to stuff that you can navigate and move around. You can feel the emotion of the pictures, even though you can't see the people. Like all of that, to me, it just goes, that makes too much sense. And it's kind of weird.
It's just such an unexplored space.
Yeah.
Man, is it good or is it bad?
Funny story. I don't know if I believe in good or bad anymore.
Okay, tell me more.
I'm
interested in this.
Everything just has its purpose.
Okay.
Right. And so, while I'm not endorsing, awful things, because the first place people go, oh, so rape is not bad. Hold up. Everything has its purpose. And I'm not saying I would want or advocate for these things that we classify as bad, but if you zoom out in the perspective of everything being connected and being one, duality is like this weird experiment that we're in. And that's part of the whole weird human experience.
Why do you say it's like a weird part of reality, duality is?
So how do I explain this? Going back to the whole reincarnation thing. This is taking us way off topic, but that's okay. It's interesting. We come from a place where everything's connected, and we know that, and we have that connectedness. Things like mushrooms or meditation bring us back into that connectedness where we recognize we're all one. And so some people react to that differently. You see people like on a mushroom trip, and they're like, I'm one with the tree. I feel it. And they're not wrong. It's just weird because we live in a reality of separation. We're disconnected from that. And that's the whole point of the human experience is let's disconnect from source, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and see if we can find our way back. Because that's true mastery, if you can totally forget and find your way back and remember and be connected and operate from that place of we're connected to everything.
Can I take you down a weird thought that's along these same lines?
Yeah, please do.
Have you ever thought about, I think it's almost a fact, but about the concept that you very well might be just this little like organ that we call a brain. That is Tony Skinner. And then you're just inside of this little meat bag, this little meat robot. And so like, if you try to like pull yourself, think about the idea that you're looking through your eyes.
Your body's the car you can't get out of until you die.
Yeah. Like think about like you're not using your eyes to see, you're looking through your eyes. Mm-hmm. And that is the idea of separation from everything else. I don't know. I don't know where that goes, but
yeah, it's just the fact that that's what consciousness is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Consciousness is you're coming and you're experiencing this human skin suit and this human life and reality, and when you leave this skin suit, you go back to whatever else is on the other side. And there's been books of ancient religious texts, people who've done past life regression shit to ask people what's in the in-between. There's lots of cool information out there. I think the only way to definitively know is to experience it, which is why people call death, a great adventure. But I think you're absolutely right that we are not our bodies. This is just a vehicle for this three-dimensional experience.
Yeah. And so if you die, then it kind of releases it. And then that begs the question, like, where does that consciousness go? And it only makes sense that it's, Amazon Web Services. The cloud, right?
Well, we've talked about before the different, on one of the episodes we did, where the guy did all the research and he weighed the bodies as they were dying. And
Yes.
So there's something there.
Near-death experiences,
Near-death experience is what it was. Thanks for that reminder. But basically, our soul or our consciousness or whatever that is, everything in the universe is some sort of energy or matter, and it's measured in some way. And even though it's measured in the slightest little difference, there is still a measurement. Whatever the driver, your consciousness, left your body, your vehicle you were driving.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Makes stuff really cool because now I'm not afraid of anything. Because guess what? If I die, I respawn.
I respawn, bitch.
Or if I'm wrong, I was happy while I was living.
Because you just accepted it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to be. I don't know that I'm with you that there's no good or bad, but I don't think that for Deja Vu there's a good or bad. Like, I think it's, well, I guess if I categorize it as anything, just to give an answer, I guess I would put it on the bad side because I think that it's some type of glitch with the way that your brain processes information. And so like a glitch just isn't good, but it's not really bad, but it's like, oh, your system misfired or something.
So let me try to explain the good or bad from not such a high perspective, but bring it down to a little bit more tangible. Everything's as we make it, right? And so while the rape example, I think anyone in the world can agree that's pretty fucked up. You still get to choose what you make out of that, right? You can choose to let that be a bad defining experience for your life, or you can choose it to be an experience that gave you strength. Like, I'm not saying we should go collect up or excuse fucked up shit. Like, don't misunderstand me. But everything is what you make it. So there is, in that aspect, there is no good or bad. It's just our perspective. And if we don't have to put it in these polar opposite buckets, this was good, this was bad, maybe put things more in a, I like this, I didn't like this served me, this didn't serve me. That blends good and bad a little bit better than just these arbitrary black line good, bad.
Beautiful way to frame it up. I love that. So like going back to your example, the way that I'm thinking about that, like to put something that's grounded in my mind, it's like if you had that type of experience, do you use it as a springboard to say like, look, I am strong, I can recover from this, and in fact it might even become a platform that I use to spread awareness, and that creates something that's like more meaningful in my life. Maybe you were working like a 9-to-5 that you hated, and now you're doing TED Talks talking about this and helping other people through helping them navigate something that was a really traumatic time in their life.
Definitely.
And that is a good thing. Maybe that event itself was something that you didn't like, but the net outcome was good for your life and other people's life.
Here's the really fucked up thing that I struggle with is that it's very well accepted. In order to build muscle and build physical strength, you have to break and tear your muscles. It's a fact.
Yeah.
What's not as commonly talked about or accepted is it's the same thing for your mind, your emotions, and your spirit. You have to go through fucked up shit to build strength. There's no way around it. Now you can do that in little increments if you want, and you can follow you can go down like a meditative path, or you have discipline or consistency with whatever you're doing. But those typically aren't the people who stand out and you look at them and they do great fucking shit. Typically, it's the people who have had really hard shit that they used as that springboard. They said, you know what? Let me tear all my muscles and build them all back at once. Physically, I'm not recommending that, but you follow my drift, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, physically, it actually kind of makes sense because, if you do like a lot of repetitions of light weights, then you'll get really toned, but you won't really bulk up. And so, you might not be stronger. You'll be healthy, just like discipline makes you healthy. But if you have those real pivotal defining moments that happen in somebody's life, then that's where people seem to really pull what we classify as character from.
Right.
And that's, if you want to use a physical example, kind of akin to doing low reps, heavy weights, and that's where it's like really tearing your muscles, but they grow back so much stronger.
And there's a line and a layer, because you have to be careful, because if you do too much physical stuff like that, you can actually injure yourself, and then now you have to repair the damage, not the potential growth. And some of that stuff you have to start all over again, and you're creating more work for yourself instead of growth. It's the same thing with your mental, physical, or mental, spiritual, emotional stuff. If you do too much, people can actually break, or it takes a long time to recover before you can integrate the growth from those experiences.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to frame up like good and bad, just at its core.
And I think people like the idea of good and bad because it's easy to not own your life. Oh, this bad thing happened to me.
That's why I'm in this position.
Exactly. It's easy to dismiss. Or I don't want to own the hard work I've put in. Oh, this good thing happened. I'm so lucky. Good shit just happened to me. No.
So let me rephrase the original question then. Do you think that there's any value that you can pull from deja vu experiences?
I'm sure there is. What that value might be, I think we'd have to understand more of what deja vu is, right? Yeah. And so I think to me, deja vu is probably one of those mystical, metaphysical secrets to the universe that maybe a few have cracked, but it's just not been common knowledge yet to understand what type of an indicator it truly is. Or I could be totally fucking wrong, and it's literally just your brain glitching.
I'd like to think that it's some other civilization has had that same type of experience, and we're just tapping into it.
I'm okay with that.
That excites me.
A Mayan was here once.
A Mayan? Oh, I'm thinking like something on the other side of the galaxy.
Oh, so you're talking like extraterrestrial shit.
Yes.
Love. Ooh, fuck. Okay, even better. You're thinking way bigger than me.
That's what I want it to be.
Cool.
What I think it is more along like the neurological stuff, but I want it to be something with collective consciousness. Because oh man, well, this is about to get into.
Let's just go. We got time.
Why there are almost certainly like aliens and stuff, and it's just a numbers game at that point. But like, man, people want purpose so much in life, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of talked a little bit about purpose. And what is the purpose of life if there isn't something that's a collective consciousness or some embodiment of that? And people talk about God and heaven and things like that. And perhaps it is God and heaven. But when you think about God, he's described as omniscient, omnipotent. And what is that? That's all-knowing. Just like every particle in the universe all contributing to the same collective consciousness.
For me, it was hard to grasp that concept of God knowing that, because with the idea of God, especially in like a Judeo-Christian perspective, you want to personify him or it.
Yeah, I paused after saying him. I was like,
it's okay. Her, whatever. For me, it's easier to wrap my head around when people in other circles will talk about it as source, because now source, it's not necessarily personified, and source is everything. I'm source, you're source, we're all source. It's all boils down to energy and that collective consciousness and oneness. Most traditions talk about the same fucking shit, and they just put their own perspective or language on it. Most of the shit is pretty aligned. So you talk about the source, the universe, it's all of everything, God, all-knowing, all-being, everywhere. Oh, damn, that's kind of all the same shit.
What do you think about this being like, what do you think about deja vu being a checks and balances kind of thing? Maybe that ties into...
Explain to me. What do you mean by that?
Maybe this ties into what you're talking about with reincarnation, but like, if it's checks and balances, it's like a test in the overall conscious system. It's like, okay, this should happen in this experience, and you get feedback. It's like send the signal and it comes back confirmed. Yes, that experience did happen. Okay, cool. We're still in contact with that. Like kind of like a ping of some sort.
Okay, so basically, kind of going back to what I said about the potential, and I guess it's just a different angle, but kind of saying the same thing. You choose your life path before you come because you've got shit you've got to do. You hit that. Deja vu is a checkbox of, yep, I'm experiencing what I'm supposed to experience in whatever level. And because it's a check mark thing, it's typically not on these big aha moments, like you said, because the big aha moment, it's too much firing and experiencing. It's going to be in these in-between mundane moments where you don't have to typically be using your senses for anything, where it can do that check and trigger thing.
Yeah, and so like it's like whereas in the first example that you brought up, it was something that you, the individual, in some previous form had said, this is like the path and the trajectory that we're going down. We'll have this happen. And that's kind of like the same concept of the checks and balances.
Yep.
But maybe I was approaching it from a different angle with like the higher level up.
I was just saying that as an extension of the higher.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the same thing.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Where does this take us?
I don't know. Let me look at my notes and see if there's anything we didn't cover before. As I was the looping life theory. So this is kind of different. I don't think I fully subscribe to this with the reincarnation thing. But you know me, I always got to do a little research on TikTok and see what the internet has to say. And this one kid was talking about when you die, people always talking about seeing the white light. And then when you're born, you're always crying because you just left and you just died and you came in and there's that disconnect there. I did not explain that well, but are you following me?
I think so. So like basically it's like the last experience that you had was death, which is a sad moment, and you're coming out as a baby straight from that.
And you're crying because you just left your life and everything you know, and everything starts to fade and not remember. And then deja vu are just the glitches in between. To me, there's more holes in that. That doesn't make as much sense to me, but it was a cool thought exercise and idea anyway. Yeah. Because I kind of like the idea of all the kids crying because they just died. Like, oh, I'm dying. Oh, I'm cool. I'm just starting over. We good? We good, fam? Like, oh, all right, we good.
So if you get reincarnated, do you think that happens immediately?
I don't think it is. I really don't. Based on some of just logic to me, but then also based on some of these past life regression books that I've read. So some of these hypnotherapists who put people into like a hypnotic state and then ask them questions, and then they help pull up past lives, and then sometimes even talk about the in-between or where they go in between their lives. And very consistently through clients, and these people are curious who have written these books, and they stumble across them. Man, I was an atheist and I didn't believe in any of this shit, is what the one book the guy who wrote the book said. But then my clients kept saying the same things without me pre-programming them or trying to force them into seeing any of these things. And they very consistently would talk about going to an in-between place where they would integrate the information from their life that they learned, the lessons, whatever, and then plan out where they were going to go for their next life.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so sometimes you're a male, sometimes you're a female, sometimes you'll have a family, sometimes you're not. And you pretty much plan out at least a version of where you want to be. So, you know, when you're a kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Most kids know, and sure, it changes or whatever, but typically people discover something, whether that be one of those pre-programmed moments that you hit and then you go, oh, this was set up in my life path for me to go, this is really what I want to do with my life.
So do you think that you're in control of this path, or do you think it's like your assignment?
It's probably a combination, right? Okay. So if there's collective consciousness, if that's real, and we're all out there to expand and elevate the universe, however you want to define that, well, I have my job and my role that I'm supposed to go do. How I carry that out is probably up to me, and I get to choose that. Similar to like we've both done instructional design. You get information from a stakeholder. hey, here's the end result, what we want to do. Now it's our job to filter and translate how we create that training to create the experience the stakeholder's asking for. I think if you just cosmically blow that up and put it up layers, we get to choose how we're helping be part of the collective consciousness. And so we choose and map out our life path and how we think it's going to go, put some markers in and hope for the best. And if you get it, great. You go integrate that knowledge. If you miss it, that's where the idea of karma comes back in, or people repeating the same lessons because they're not, or repeating the same experiences because they're not catching the same lesson. So that could also tie back into deja vu, is that you've come and repeatedly tried to experience and master something. Kind of like you can't go to third grade if you keep fucking up second grade. Oh, I got to keep coming back to second grade. Oh, here are these little glitches and these remembrances because I've been here before. I've tried to learn this lesson, but I've not passed the test yet. Makes sense. I don't know how to prove it.
That's the thing with deja vu. Like the issue is that it's so random, so subjective, and so fleeting that it's extremely hard to capture. Like, I'd love to put somebody into an MRI machine when they experience deja vu.
I'd like to go back 1,000 years and ask the same question to people who lived back then.
Oh,
because
better.
Today we are so fast paced and so distracted by so many fucking things. I like to talk about TikTok. You know that. I'll bring it up every 60 seconds there or less. I'm sick of this story. I want something new. I'm 3 seconds into it. This is going to be boring, and I switch it. So much potential information, so much shit. We're so easily distracted, and I'm going to go swing by McDonald's and grab some food. There's no longer this patient, intimate knowing of the whole process and being aware of these things. So it might have been common knowledge of what deja vu really was 1,000 years ago, or we were more present. And so when it happened, we could have more than just that was weird, and you move right along your day.
Or maybe it didn't happen as much because you don't have that divided attention issue.
There you go. Either way, I'd like to see what their perspective was 1,000 years ago.
Yes. That would be, I feel like that would be one of the most insightful things to do, is like ask that question, pose it to them, and then just kind of map out like wherever that answer goes, any number of the different topics that you just threw out.
When Elon Musk figures out time travel, we'll do it.
I don't know if it's going to be Elon. He's already done too much. I'd be kind of scared if he figured it out. I'd be like, all right, dude, slow down. Let the rest of us catch up, dude.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Elon Musk is an alien or a time traveler sent to come help fix a bunch of shit.
Look, this is where you guys are fucking up.
Hey guys, you've had the technology for electric cars for a while.
Why are you not using it?
There's been this whole monopoly on oil because everyone's been afraid to. I don't give a shit. I'll do it. Okay. Well, here we are. Now electric cars are a thing. Thanks, Elon.
More people need to have the hold my beer mentality.
Yeah, well, and I just love his whole mindset as an individual. His dedicated focus on what he's going after, nothing gets in his way. Like I heard the story of
why can't we do this?
Like of how he built PayPal. Well, it was just him and his brother. They would go in 12-hour shifts of coding. That's how you made your first $100 million or $1 billion, whatever. You built PayPal from the ground up, and then you sold that shit. Oh, well, let me take every last fucking penny I have to create space travel and electric cars. I mean, there was times he almost went broke putting all of his money into making Tesla happen. We could not have Tesla because people weren't buying into it. He went all in on himself. Well, that's why he's one of the richest people in the world right now, because his wealth and his idea wasn't split between all these investors. He did it himself.
Goodness gracious.
I would not be surprised. Dude's still young in comparison to...
Yeah, 49.
Yeah, he's just starting to do the space shit. Like, he's just starting to figure that shit out. And then the electric stuff, completely changing that across the globe. When he gets bored, he creates, let's make a company that builds tunnel systems. Let's make a flamethrower. Dude gets bored and just creates shit to better our lives. I would not be surprised if he's got more shit to put us back on a whatever timeline we're supposed to be on as humanity.
We need more of it.
Yep. Thanks, Elon.
Well, everybody, we appreciate you listening in. And if you've already heard this episode before,
Hey,
let us know. Give us a shout out in the comments. And we'd love to help you find another episode to check out.
thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next week.